Hey, what is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the College Info Geek Podcast, the internet's best resource for getting ahead as a student or a professional, but a terrible resource for figuring out how to eliminate all the latency in your Zoom call so you can actually do a podcast without speaking over each other and it being a complete dumpster fire. Hi,
That's
Martin.
true. We don't know how to do that.
Apparently, the people at Comcast don't know how to do that either. I don't think it's a Zoom problem. I think it's something else.
T-U-F-F.
It's rough? Is that what you said?
No, it's T-U-F-F. It's tough.
Oh, it's tough. Like Tough Shed?
Yeah, it's like that.
Like that building that I drive by sometimes in Denver?
I don't know what buildings you...
Like,
I don't follow you in the car.
well, maybe you should. Sometimes I go to interesting places.
All right.
Like past the Tough Shed building.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Martin, how stir crazy are you going?
Well, I can't seem to go to bed at a normal time, and everything is one, and I don't remember what the outside is. I go for a little bit of a walk, but it's still really weird to like cross the street 1,000 years ahead of everybody. Like
It's so weird.
It feels really unfriendly.
Yeah, and it's very weird. Like avoiding people, and then you're like,
"Sorry,
no,
Grandma, are you gonna mug me? I'm gonna cross the street." It feels really weird.
I'm not avoiding you because I don't like you. It's just because
Yeah. Except you.
We have to.
Except you over there. I don't like you.
Except for you. Yeah, and now everyone's wearing masks outside, so it really feels like the apocalypse.
Oh yeah. When we went to the store, it looks like there are a bunch of like old people, gangsters in bandanas. It's like it's great.
It's very surreal.
Who knew that fashion would be happening? I didn't know.
Well, it's certainly fashion. Who knows? Maybe when this is all over, we're just going to wear masks.
We're just going to be like, that mask was pretty comfy.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be like Mad Max. Everyone's just going to have like a mask sometimes.
Yeah, something like that.
Or spray paint their mouth with silver spray paint.
That seems like it has side effects.
That's fine. We'll get non-toxic spray paint. Look, if they can make non-toxic crayons that are basically food, then PSA, they're not food.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
They can make non-toxic silver spray. I'm sure the spray paint they used in the movie is probably non-toxic unless they just
depending on when they made it
in. Yeah, I'm sure they found some way. I don't know, maybe it's like metallic food coloring or something.
I mean, I hope so.
In aerosol form.
It's probably just lead.
It's fine. It's everything's fine on a certain time scale.
Yeah.
You just gotta adjust your perspective. On like a nanosecond time scale, almost everything is fine to do.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And on a billion-year time scale, everything is not fine to do. So who are we to say that the time scale that we assume is the right time scale? Anyway, this week on the show, we're going to talk about how to do good for your community during these troubling times. And I don't know about you, but I had several definitions of the word community.
Well, one,
I'm not sure.
Hit sitcom that I enjoyed.
With 6 seasons in a movie?
Yeah.
Have we gotten the movie yet?
We did not get the movie yet. I'm hoping for it.
Hopefully it comes out.
Yeah. But yeah, there are a few things. I mean, when I started thinking of this idea, I was definitely thinking local community, kind of like the local community version of our big list of ways to be eco-friendly. That's the way I started when I approached this, particularly because it's like, well, because we got this going on, so a lot of communities are going to be hurt or hurting, and it's a presidential election year, so a lot of people are thinking, how can I do good? How can I bring about change? To which I greatly believe that the biggest change happens on a smaller scale first. It's the easiest way to do it, and then you work your way up. So like doing good on a local level is your greatest ability to do good, and I think that'll give a lot of people accomplishment, purpose, etc.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good episode for people who feel stuck, feel kind of trapped at home, feel like there's nothing for them to do right now, because there are in fact things you can do to help out. Anna's mom has been sewing masks.
Oh
for
yeah,
people. Yeah.
nice.
And I mean, like, it sucks because, like, obviously a homemade mask isn't going to do nearly as much as a, proper medical mask. But
Yeah,
we're still being given the directive that it's like now a good idea to have one if you go out. So
it's
it's
like
it's
better
nice that she's
than,
making,
it won't
it's
protect
better than
you, but it's better
duct taping a
than,
sock over your face or something.
it's better than like sneezing all over everything in
Yeah.
public, because you don't know that you're not asymptomatically infected. You know, I don't know that I'm not. So it just makes more sense to be somewhat cautious anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the last episode, we had touched a little bit on how I've been keeping track of my social interactions to maintain friends, which is like my chosen community, which is also something we could try to
Exactly.
maintain and keep happier during these times.
I made a list of communities, not including Britta and Pierce and Shirley and all those. There's your family,
Weird first
and then you have
choices.
your friends. Those are good first choices.
No, they're like weird first choices. I mean, they're fine, but I wouldn't have. I feel like Britta's like super main, but I digress. It's just like you didn't even list
Okay,
Jeff, who's like the leader of the group
and
for all intents and
so
purposes.
this is
It
I
was
was
real
going through
weird.
the other characters in my head, and I was like, all right, there's Troy and Abed, and then there's Annie. Who's the main guy?
Oh,
And
okay.
I've watched a
Okay,
good
yeah.
amount of
I
Community. I
was
just
like,
brain farted on the main guy's name.
it
It's
just
Jeff.
felt like you were like, I'm gonna list the characters in Rick and Morty, and then you just went on all the other family members, and you left out
Well,
like,
yeah, there's Beth. There's
yeah, what's that
Summer.
show with Beth and
There's
Summer? And
there's the principal.
it's real good.
There's the math teacher. I'm blanking
That
on
guy
anybody
who's the
else.
guy
And
who's just walking here.
there's yeah, just walking here guy.
Very
And then
important.
of course the main character, the Garblovians,
Yeah, it's
who
basically what
have
it felt like.
signature
Uh,
trademark Garb Glarb Glarb, which is just the best.
yeah,
Okay, so my communities I listed out: family, you get your friends, you have your work community, local community, and then the global community. So I thought we could kind of try to address each one of these communities.
yep,
Though I think like my suggestion for family and friends is going to be sort of kind of similar. So maybe we could lump them into one category. And the main thing there, besides like checking in with family, especially to see if there's any like actual help that's needed, is just staying in contact. And I want to start here because last time we did an episode, we had talked about this system you have for making sure you stay in contact with friends and family on a regular basis. And I want to dig into that because I'm curious.
yep.
So, what's your system? Your third Martin system that we're talking about this
I
year.
do a lot of systems. That's what I do. I systematize. Um, so
Monopolize.
originally this idea had come from that billion-year-old Trello idea, but I found that too slow for me. And it's on an old podcast episode. I'm pretty sure if anybody wants to read about.
Can you recap
that.
it for us?
And the Trello thing, so you got like, it's the Kanban system. You got lists next to each other horizontally. There was a list for each month, and you'd have a little card in each list, like January for mom, and then when you talk to her in February, you drag her right over to February. That way you would know when you had talked to somebody last, roughly. But
yeah, at least the last month you talked to them in.
Yeah. But I ended up finding that too cumbersome, especially if I just had a phone on me. I didn't want to drag things over to lists and do all that. I wanted something quicker. So I have this system now, which is an adaptation of a middle system that I had done through iCloud Notes. I'm doing this in Bear, the writing app. It's on Mac and iOS. It could be done in a lot of note-taking apps. The main important feature is that your notes in any given group can be viewed so that the most recently edited is at the top. That's the main thing. So I go over here into Bear or anything else, and I've got a tag called Social, in which I have something like 35 names right now. Although, to be fair, a couple of those are groups. Like, I group my grandparents together. I don't call them separately one after the other, and then I feel like they would just be confused at me for doing that. So I've got like a bunch of people in here. The card just has their name, or the note, I guess. In each name, I've got a little heading for March 2020 and now April 2020. Under that heading, I every day I interact with them. It doesn't matter which day. Doesn't matter if they're consecutive. Every separate date on which I interact with them, I put a plus sign under the month. And I've
So
got
is
the
it just a
months.
tally for the month?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got
Okay.
the months sort of reversed. So it's March is on the bottom, April's on the top. So the most recent month is the one I see at the top to edit it easier. So I can see here because of the plus signs, and this is the part I wanted to add from the Trello system, in addition to just making it easier to edit. I can now tell, oh man, I've been talking to these certain people basically every single day since Animal Crossing came out. That's a big pattern that I'm seeing. Some people I don't talk to as much. It's useful for me to know, like, hey, so I've been talking to these people every single day, but this person, it looks like I've spoken to them somewhat recently, but actually it was just like once last month. So I'm not really keeping that in touch with them, and I would like to be more. So as it stands, I have 8 people that I spoke to yesterday, like another 15 that I had spoken to within a day or two of that. And all of the list, the very oldest item is 2 weeks. So I think this is helping me do a much better job than usual.
Yeah. That's actually a pretty great system. Because I'm
Yeah,
sure there are people that have just sort of fallen through the cracks. Like you don't think about how long it's been since you talked to,
yeah,
I don't know, like your aunt or just, a friend that you probably saw more regularly when you weren't at home all the time, just because maybe you had like interactions at the gym or you're at work together and now you don't see them.
yeah. And
I
I
guess
didn't
it
want to let
takes a
anybody
lot
slip
more.
through,
Yeah. It takes a lot more intentionality now to interact with people. Like you have to.
especially like imagine if you feel like, well, time is passing weirdly. It feels weird, but if you're so used to that person, you feel like it's been since just yesterday. You may not even realize you haven't talked to them for a month because you're just like, I just hung out with them. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the meme that's been going around of like the 60s Spider-Man, and there's 7 different people dressed as Spider-Man all pointing at each other. They have the days of the week on them. Every day is now the same.
Yeah,
It really does feel like that. Um, to create some separation, I've been like having to be a little bit more serious, and I feel like I only started this past weekend, but I've been more serious about the weekend days being weekend days and not doing, at least not doing CIG related work on those days. I still like go around the house doing DIY stuff because that's just what I typically do. But I tried really hard to not work over the past weekend, and that did help the separation a little bit.
yeah. That's something that I'm going to be trying to do. I'm actually going to be spending some time today setting up a new schedule just because I used to have like a morning routine that functioned and then it got all messed up and I keep going to bed at
Mm,
1 and I'm dying. But I need to know when I'm done working because I
yeah.
don't get to put usually I'd be like, okay, so now I'll go over to this, we'll go to the bookstore. That's my in between. But there's
Mm.
no that
I think one
now.
of the biggest things right now is get your mornings right because they kind of set the tone for the day. And if there's one thing I've been doing well during this whole lockdown, it's been the morning routines. Haven't been doing everything well, but it's been pretty decent on that front. So other than just like contact and tracking your interactions, making sure that you're having interactions with people in your life, and what else can we do to help out family and friends specifically?
Okay, so actually, and this could be tied into the system as well. Since it's notes, you could write down if there is anything you need to keep track of.
Mm.
So I've been paying attention to how some people are doing. I don't want to get into anybody's weird private details, but like
Yeah.
emotionally, if I know that they're going through something difficult right now, I also know that they're largely isolated and going through something difficult right now. So I want to reach out a little more often than maybe I normally would.
Mm.
And I'm checking with my family. I've been checking like, hey, how's food supply over there? How are these kind of things? And I'm sort of trying to cut back my own spending just so I have a little tiny safety net for helping if
Yeah.
something happens with somebody.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is not just reaching out, but being willing to ask how people are doing, asking if there's any issues. And even if you're not in a position to financially help or help in some sort of tangible way, at least being there to talk and empathize.
Yeah.
I know this is like a thing that guys have a problem with, especially is like asking each other, how are you doing? How are you actually feeling right now? We have this pressure to sort of bottle it up. So maybe, just reaching out
Yeah,
and
very very
asking how people are
familiar.
doing.
And
Hmm.
that has good effects. I mean, just the other day, like I had texted somebody within like a week before, and they had told me, "Man, here's all this ridiculous stuff that is happening. It's no good." And like a few days later, I was just like, "Hey, how are you holding up?" And they actually pointed out, "I actually really appreciate that you just checked." And it's like, I know what it's like to feel like everything's going wrong and you're trapped or you're powerless. And now we're extra trapped. We're literally extra trapped by forces that I don't get to choose. This is my
Yeah.
emotions can't make it okay for me to just go do normal things. I can't, it's not me regulating that anymore. So
Yeah.
it's extra hard to deal with. And it's hard to ask things. But I mean, at least we have an easy shared context to
Hmm.
kind of dive in to that kind of a question. How are you holding up?
Yeah.
Because
And maybe
we can
this
just say,
is,
"What? We're checking on the virus. Everybody's doing it. And it's what you're supposed to do."
I think people appreciate it. Even without this context, it's just something that we don't think to do very often, but people do appreciate it. And maybe this is, one of those silver linings in this situation where the distance and the fact that we have to put in more effort to reach out will push us to be a little bit more intentional about the way that we reach out and connect with friends and family and ask them how they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like it feels like it's some sort of weird private question to ask, but like if
Hmm.
I'm your close friend, there's no reason I shouldn't just ask that kind of a question unless I know you specifically don't want me to. But
Yeah.
leaving those kind of things inside, not being able to communicate them, that's not going to set anybody else up for success.
Hmm. So, what about work community? I mean, you and I have been working fairly remotely for many, many years, but a lot of people have a huge shift going on in work right now. There's brand new methods of communicating with coworkers and bosses and
Yeah.
people who, I don't know how many managers listen to the College Info Geek podcast, but maybe some do. And they're like, how do I help my employees? I mean, I think that's something that we could talk about as well. And one thing that I've been thinking of is just like kind of just having to step up in terms of the organization because things are changing so much now and everyone is having to work from home. And I've been thinking like, how can we help each other stay on task? How can we help each other actually get things done, but still feel connected? And one thing I wanted to bring up as a potential for people who are used to working together in a physical space is something that I used to do with my friend Alex. So my friend Alex lived in Austin, Texas, when I was in Iowa, and we were both bloggers. So occasionally we would get on Skype, which I don't know why, but Skype seems like it's dead now. And I feel like Skype still works just fine, but no one uses it. Everyone's on the Zoom
I
train
still
now.
use it for things.
But we get on Skype and we would just be in a call together, not really talking, but there was kind of like a psychological change knowing that there was somebody else on the line, sort of like in this virtual space with the other person getting work done.
I've definitely
And
done that with Ashley a few times.
yeah, I don't know what it does, but it actually kind of helps. Um, I've seen Discord servers set up for this purpose. And also, there's a tool called FocusMate, and they basically pair you up with somebody and set up a virtual voice chat room for this express purpose, just to get work done. I haven't tried FocusMate myself because I usually would just get on a call with people normally, But I think it might actually pair you up with somebody either like anonymous or somebody else who's just a user of the service, so you don't have to have somebody specifically to do it with. But if you work for a company and you're used to working together and now you're all at home, this is something that I think could help sort of foster that feeling of community, even though you are physically distanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something you have to do, but something that would be kind of nice. Could
and then
help for
probably
people
just
who are
like,
feeling.
I mean, another thing to do for companies would just be give everybody more leeway and be more patient. Like if I'm going to do something and I know that somebody down the line needs to do something with that, somebody down the line needs to do something with that, and everybody's doing it in a brand new way, like there needs to be a lot more padding for deadlines and a lot more understanding of like, I couldn't figure this thing out, so it'll take me another day. That needs to be planned for, because it's probably just going to happen anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's going to be more lag time. People are having to get used to working from home. I mean, we're doing the whole series of videos trying to help people do that, but like it's a huge transition for a lot of people. They're dealing with family and kids. They're dealing with the internet not working half the time.
Yeah.
Can't even like do a Zoom call with my podcast co-host without delay.
Yeah. And we can't do, what are we supposed to do about it? We can't do anything about it. We're just
well, I was thinking about that and I was like, okay, if we had to, and I think the Zoom call is working fine now, but we could have gotten on the phone. Actually, I'm not even sure if that would work because I don't have any phone signal in my basement. So I rely on Wi-Fi calling, which uses my internet.
We'd have to.
So I think even a phone call wouldn't have worked.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we just have to deal with it.
Maybe we have to go to the park 50 feet from each other and yell so you can hear me in real time and then be recording it.
I mean,
and have like a generator out
we could
there.
Just have lav mics.
Mm-hmm. That'll be fine. Actually, I thought it would be cool someday for us to do a podcast where we're like lav mic'd up and just like on a hike in the forest or something.
Yeah, I really want to do that.
I don't know how we do the video part of it, unless I could have my drone fly behind us and do the active track thing.
Yeah, or we could like
or
hold
fly
a
in front of us and do active track
in front of us the whole time. I mean, it's just
that would be tough.
It would be exercise for sure.
If it was an action cam like a 1X Insta360 1X or a GoPro, that could be out on a selfie stick. That would be much easier.
It's like you're saying things to me.
In fact, I just remembered my friend Matt has some kind of belt or like chest harness. I don't know what it is. And it has a stick that sticks out from it out in front of him. And he puts the GoPro on that. So he doesn't even need to hold it. It like just is out in front of him. It's like a selfie vest. Yeah. He used it for a video. I think it was the video where he quit caffeine for 30 days. And he just had this sequence where he's like stumbling around his house in a stupor because he hasn't had caffeine. And the camera is like following his movements, and he's not holding it because his hands are both in the frame. And I was like, how did he do that? Well, he told me the other day it's some kind of selfie vest or belt or something.
That's cool.
Just has a GoPro mounted on the end of it. Yeah, and we were thinking the other day, like, how do we do that with a face cam? Because we wanted to have like a segment in a video with us playing video games and like following the faces. But I think they sell those things, and then the cheapest ones that they sell is just like it's a clip for the bill of a hat that points the GoPro in your face. But then the problem with that is like the GoPro's in your face.
Yeah.
So how do you see what you're trying to play?
I don't know. Make it up.
But yeah. Anyway, the whole point of that is, film yourself with a selfie vest and send it to your coworkers.
That seems productive. That's good. I think it'll help everyone.
This week's episode of our show is brought to you by our friends over at Brilliant, who've built an amazing learning platform for anybody who wants to increase their mastery in the areas of math, science, or computer science. They have a library of more than 60 super in-depth courses that cover, well, the entire math suite, actually. There are number theory courses, algebra courses, geometry courses. They have a brand new course about calculus in a nutshell that kind of simplifies calculus and makes it a little bit more applicable to everyone. And then they go kind of crazy with it. They go all the way up to differential equations, higher levels of calculus, high-level statistics. There's a probability course. all kinds of math courses. There are science courses like gravitational physics. There are like magnetism and light, all that kind of stuff. And then there are computer science courses. There's a course on algorithm design. There's a course on neural networks. There's one on Python programming. So if you want to learn about any of these topics, Brilliant is an excellent supplemental resource to what you may be learning in school and classrooms or through textbooks. And the reason for that is that Brilliant is built entirely on the principle of active learning. All of their courses are highly interactive. You're going to be sinking your teeth into code writing challenges, into puzzles, into dragging and dropping things. You're going to have to work with the material. Now, it is bite-sized and it's laid out in a very logical order. So you're going to be learning in a very organic way. You're not going to get too stuck, and the problems aren't too big, but they are going to challenge you, which is great because that means you're working actively with the material. You're actually having to use it instead of just kind of sitting back and hoping you learn through osmosis, which isn't that effective. And as a result, you learn more quickly and you stay more engaged and more interested the entire time. Additionally, because everything is built around solving problems, you are becoming a better universal problem solver while you're working through these courses. And in doing so, you become more capable at solving creative problems in either your current work or your future career. And that helps your job prospects. Now, in addition to that library of courses, Brilliant has a feature called Daily Challenges, where you get to take this concept of making problem solving a daily occurrence and a habit even further. Every day, you're going to get one new challenge in a new area that you might not have actually tried out yet or explored yet. And you can use that to kind of bolster that daily habit. So if you want to start with Brilliant for free today, you can go over to brilliant.org/collegeinfogeek. And with their free plan, you can get those new daily challenges every single day. And if you're one of the first 200 people to go to that URL and sign up, you're going to get 20% off their annual premium subscription, which gets you access to all those in-depth courses and the entire archive of those daily challenges. So once again, brilliant.org/collegeinfogeek and sign up. Be one of the first 200 people to get that 20% off. And big thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this episode and being a big supporter of our show. Another big thanks goes out to our second sponsor this week, which is Skillshare. Skillshare has an awesome library of hundreds, actually thousands of classes for anyone who wants to boost their skills in the areas of marketing and video editing and graphic design, illustration, music production, all kinds of creative fields, along with business and productivity. They have thousands of these classes, including a couple of classes from yours truly. I've got one class on Skillshare that covers building a productivity system, all about kind of dealing with your to-do list, your calendar, your note-taking system, how you store your digital files, your physical files, and making all these different systems work together in harmony so nothing ever slips through the cracks and you're always on top of everything. Did I say clacks, Martin? I meant cracks. Nothing ever slips through the cracks. No, nothing will slip through the clacks or the cracks. I guarantee you that. And there's another course on building strong habits. So if you want to learn how to build a great morning routine, or you have a huge goal that you don't really know how to break down, this class will teach you how to break those goals down, how to kind of break them down into concrete habits that you can practice every single day, and then how to stick to those habits over the long term. We'll talk about commitment devices. We'll talk about ways of keeping yourself accountable, tracking your progress, getting better over time. So those two classes, in my humble opinion, are worth the price of admission, which honestly is not that high. Their plans start at less than $10 a month, which basically makes it like a Netflix subscription that's a lot more useful to you. And of course, in addition to my two courses, there are thousands of others on the platform. There's one that I want to focus on in particular this week, which is called iPhone Filmmaking, Create Cinematic Video with Your Phone, which is actually created by the guys at Moment, who make really cool lenses for your iPhone. I have like this wide angle lens that can go onto my iPhone and give it like this super wide angle, which is really cool. And I've used for some skateboarding videos and some clips that have actually gone into my YouTube videos before. But they have a ton of experience using relatively inexpensive cameras and technology to make really cool cinematic narrative stuff. So if you want to learn how to take humble materials and create really, really cool videos, that would be an excellent class to check out. And if you want to check it out for free, you actually can by being one of the first 1,000 people to go over to Skillshare.com/geek and sign up. By doing so, you're going to get a 2-month free trial that gives you unlimited access to the entire platform. So you can take my classes, you can take this class by the Moment guys, you can take any other class you want within those 2 months. So once again, Skillshare.com/geek, be one of the first 1,000 people to sign up. You're going to get a 2-month free trial. Big thanks as always to Skillshare for sponsoring this episode and supporting our show. And let's get back into it. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the point you made about giving people a little bit more leeway right now for figuring things out because it's a transitionary period. So I think that kind of covers like family, friends, and work, which brings us over into local community, and I think that's kind of where you had wanted to focus most of this episode, right?
Yeah, just because if other than our work and family and friends and all those, the local community is the place where we're going to be able to do the most. So
Yeah,
anybody feeling sad for their local businesses right now, or anybody who feels really politically engaged but frustrated at how slow it is to get the needs of 300 million people compromised, you know, that's obviously, that doesn't sound fast to me. So the fastest way is to get a smaller population that can do things. So the local community is, I think, the best place to try new things and improve things for people.
yeah.
So
I've had this like constant dilemma in my head where I'm fighting between the side of me that is worried about how long this goes on to the future, whether it's like a long-term recession, how much do I need to tighten my own belt and save money, especially given that there's a team
yeah,
that is kind of relying on this business to keep going, versus the knowledge that the local economy only functions when people are spending money.
yeah, it's kind of difficult because I'm like, I mean, I don't want to spend it, but if I don't, they might die forever.
Yeah, like
And
all
I
the restaurants,
Denver
climbing
would
gyms, all this
suck
kind
if
of
all the
stuff.
small businesses died. I would just be like, the city's dead to me. There's nothing to go to.
It's just a bunch of Costco's and
Yeah,
introducing Walmart climbing gym,
I don't,
introducing
I don't want.
Walmart tavern, your local down home tavern, sponsored by Amazon and Walmart. Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like that at
So
all.
yeah, my biggest thing is like, how do we keep local businesses open that have been affected by this in an outsized way? One thing is, I am not ashamed to admit I've been ordering a lot more takeout, a lot more guilt free.
I already know how much takeout you did order, so man, this is so every meal plus a couple extra
Not every
meals
meal. Okay,
every day.
like I said, my morning routine has been solid. I've been waking up. I've been cooking breakfast like every morning. Um, Lunch I either skip or I make myself, or it'll be leftovers. But yeah, when dinner rolls around, I'm just like, there are all these restaurants that I don't want to close. I have been working all day. I could either take an hour to make dinner, which would require me to go to the grocery store sooner again, or
Yeah.
I'll just order dinner and help to keep the restaurants open,
No,
because
we've been doing the same
that's the
thing.
only way they're getting money right now.
We've made a point to, like, all of our favorite local businesses, we've been trying to support at least a couple times. So far, I think we
Mm-hmm.
have at least a couple times, like our 4 or 5 favorite places. Because we're trying not to go overboard, but at the same
Yeah.
time, and then some of them are actually adapting really cleverly. Like Watercourse, you can order these like grocery esque bags from them now for like $25. They'll give you a pound of seitan, a pound of tofu that's been scrambled, and then like 4 burger patties, and it's like restaurant groceries. Like, they're adapting really cleverly. So
That's really smart.
we've been making a point to try to go with it, because if
Yeah.
they're coming up with clever solutions to keep their people in business and their employees working, then I want to support them.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I think I mean, if you have the means, that would be a great way to buy some of your groceries. Cause I mean, let's face it, like the one business that's not going to go out of business during this is the grocery stores. It's the only place people can go,
I mean, they're probably happy. They're
realistically.
selling out of everything all the time.
I don't know if they're happy. I mean, their employees are
Well, in
horrendously overworked, and
retrospect, I think that they'll look at the numbers and go, "Well, that was nice at least."
maybe. Yeah.
The
I
rest of
mean,
it was terrible, but
bottom line, they're not going out of business anytime soon, but the restaurants, no one can go into the restaurants. So,
yeah,
and I don't want us to come out of this and be like, well, our grocery stores are still around, but every local restaurant that we used to love going to, they're all gone.
no,
And
it would
that's what I'm like.
it
That's what
would be
I'm thinking about.
terrible.
The only way they stay open is if they get business. Um, and fortunately, it's not too much of an expenditure. It's more money for sure to not cook, but it's not so much that I'm worried about our own financial feasibility. that I'm happy to just order and keep them working.
Yeah, and like as long as it's reasonable for you, it's fine. Because
Hmm.
obviously, I would never say throw all your money into the local economy and go bankrupt.
Yeah.
That's a terrible idea. One cannot pour from an empty cup, etc. But
Yeah, that's a good point to make. One cannot pour from an empty cup. Like, don't put
yeah,
yourself in any kind of hardship, or at least undue hardship. But
yeah,
I think like when the economy is running smoothly, it runs smoothly because people are allowed to take some of their income and and inject it back into the economy.
yeah,
Um, and this has sort of like halted our ability to do that in honestly probably the majority of ways that we typically would. So we have to find ways to be more intentional about that when we can.
yeah,
Another thing that I've been doing is prepaying for services that I would be using now if not for the virus. So, um, my vocal school switched to a like monthly membership thing. So instead of paying like for every single lesson, it's just like there's a membership that gets me X amount of lessons. Um, so I've just switched over to that. And like
hmm.
right now, I haven't had time to do lessons, and it's kind of hard to do lessons with Anna in the house, like having to hear me scream.
Oh,
But
that's fair.
I'm continuing to pay for that, continuing to pay for my rock climbing gym membership because I don't want them to close. And then for like the people who would come clean our house, well, they can't really safely come into people's houses right now. But we called the person who owns that business and we're like, hey, can we buy like cleanings 2 months from now, 3 months from now, just so you guys don't have a immediate cash flow issue. And I mean, the extension of that would be like, can we just pay for services that we're not getting? And if you have the ability to do that, like that's probably even better. But if you're prepaying for services and getting a discount later on, what that does is it prevents these businesses from having like a cash flow crisis now that would be an existential threat to their business. And things are going to be thin for a while, but if it's like reasonably thin for a while, that's survivable. Whereas if it is like all revenue is gone overnight now, well, unless the business can get a line of credit or something, it could be the end of the business.
Yeah, and I've been
So
doing
that's
the
kind of where my head's at.
exact same thing. I'm doing all my piano lessons over Zoom now. It's
Mm-hmm.
not quite the same, but because I already kind of know how to work with this teacher, it's still working out. I'm still getting direction. I'm continuing all of my language lessons that I was doing, and then I even missed one. I missed one, and I couldn't go to it, and I was just like, I'm gonna pay for this one anyway, and then just
Mm-hmm.
get a second one. It's like stuff's weird right now. I'm gonna just pay everybody that helps me the same as I always would, as if
Yeah.
nothing were weird,
Yeah.
because I'm not gonna go around asking each specific person, "Hey, how are your finances? Are you okay? Do you need my help?" No, I don't. That's not my business. They might not
Mm-hmm.
want to answer it, so I'm just gonna pay everybody as normal. And if anybody did need the money, they'll be secretly glad that I did not stop.
Yeah. Another thing that I am thinking of is don't underestimate the adaptability and creativity of your local businesses. And if there's something that you would order from a gigantic monopoly, ask yourself like, is there a local place I would go to get this in normal times? And if there is, uh, look them up and see what they're doing. Like Tattered Cover Bookstore, you probably can't go in there right now, but I bet you they're shipping books out,
Yeah, you
and
could
you can
probably
order
order
directly from
online.
them.
A lot of
So if you want a
restaurants give
book,
free shipping now. They didn't before,
mm-hmm,
or delivery, they would call it in that case.
yeah, I did notice that the delivery apps now have an option where you can just like straight up give extra money to the restaurant. It's aside from the
Wow.
tip. It's like, you want to give them an extra $2 so they stay in business. And I'm like, yes, actually, here you go.
Yeah.
I won't miss that $2. Please don't close. But yeah, like if I'm gonna order a book, maybe I could order it from a local bookstore. And who knows? Maybe at this point the shipping time would be even less
Yeah.
because like Amazon's, they're not very fast with non-essential goods right now. So it's possible you'd even get it faster than normal.
Yeah. And you can do what you were doing with the lessons and stuff. You can pre-order. Like I
Mm-hmm.
pre-ordered the next David Mitchell book, comes out in June, but they get that money now, so that's useful for them.
Yeah. What services have you stopped going to? Because I'm trying to think of like what do I do in my normal everyday life in terms of like my interactions with the local economy. I do vocal lessons. I can do those over Zoom if I need to. Climbing gym. Now my climbing gym is doing online like yoga, online fitness training stuff, and I keep my membership active. I'm training with a different fitness coach, so I'm not taking advantage of those, but I'm at least keeping my membership active. So that is kind of covering that. Ordering takeout a lot or ordering groceries from restaurants like you're doing, that helps with local restaurants. I'm trying to think of like what other businesses do I interact with on a somewhat regular basis when I have the ability to go out into the world.
I think cafes are the things that we're going to the least, because Ashley would work at
Oh
one.
yeah.
She would work
Mm-hmm.
at like a Starbucks or any of the other local cafes. And right now,
Yeah.
we've gone to one like twice, but I don't have the habit right now, and it feels like more of an unnecessary risk than getting groceries, which I need a
Yeah.
lot more than like a fun candy drink.
I have heard that some cafes are doing what do you call it? Where you like it's like drive up, I guess. They don't have drive throughs, but you just park on the street or whatever that bring you out coffee or something.
Yeah.
Or they'll put it on the sidewalk and then go back in or something like that. So that might be a way to support local cafes. I'm wondering what else could you do to support a local cafe? Maybe they could do barista classes online
Some
or
have
something.
gift cards.
Okay. Oh, gift
Um,
cards could be a thing for sure.
some of them sell other products too. I know a couple of our local coffee shops, if not all of them, also sell bags of coffee beans or mugs and
Hmm.
things like that.
Actually, that's a great idea. That's very similar to your idea of getting the groceries from Watercourse. Like if you're going to buy coffee, buy it from a local roaster through a local coffee shop, and if they can ship it to you, all the better.
Yeah.
Because like I haven't even thought about that. I've been just buying my coffee from the grocery store, and that's fine. But there's probably umpteen coffee shops that roast their own beans and sell them, where I could just buy those.
Yeah.
So
And then
I am
like
going to do
after this
that.
is all over, we could just keep doing that,
Hmm.
and we would be supporting small businesses a lot more. I mean, I wanted to get a bird feeder real bad, and I'm sure I could probably get one on Amazon right now. It'd just be slow shipping. But I was also recommended an actual physical bird like store, and
Hmm.
there's one in Denver. So I'm just waiting. I might check to see if I can order online from them, but I see no reason to get impatient and say I'm going to go with the guys I know are going to ship it right now
Yeah.
just because it's
Yeah, and
easier.
if the business you're interested in isn't straight up offering online shipping, I would I would go as far as to call them up and ask if that's something they could do. I think right now, like for a lot of people who have been, significantly affected by this, um, there's kind of like there's a need for hope. There's a need for like some kind of spurring action, and there may be people out there who are perfectly capable of spinning up like a shipping side of things who just haven't thought of it yet,
Like maybe they
or
didn't
they've
think it
just
was
been
worth it. They didn't know
yeah
there was a
like
demand
oh
yet.
hmm they just see their income take a huge hit, and some people may not have thought of like, oh hey, maybe there's another avenue that could go down to replace some of that revenue. Well, if there's something you want and they're not offering it, like call them up, be like, hey, can I buy this bird feeder from you? Can you ship it to me? Like throw in a pack of moist towelettes or something, disinfecting wipes so I can swipe it down just to be safe when I'm done.
Yeah.
um they might appreciate that and be like, oh wow, there's actually still demand. Okay. Because I'll tell you, like, it's not like demand has completely dried up. There, people still want things. They just can't go out and get them.
Well, yeah,
Like,
and
I need
the
a new
birds
deck
still want
umbrella.
food. The birds don't even
Yep.
care about this whole thing. They don't even care, and I'm not feeding them right now. They're probably
Hmm.
sad. They hate my house.
Yeah. Last year, there was like a particularly wet snowstorm that, and the umbrella was open on my deck, and it broke the umbrella. Like, just broke it straight in half. I would love a new deck umbrella, but I cannot go to Home Depot to get one. So I'm like, well, I probably should just call around or look online and see if I can order one. Like the demand for non-essential stuff is not completely dead. It's just we have to find some creative ways of getting those things that we need. And I think for the sake of the people who run those kind of businesses, it's important that we do, as long as it's
Yeah.
not, putting your own financial health in jeopardy. Again, your line, you can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah.
is
Yeah. It
important to think
does
about.
not, like, if I run myself into the ground and then my mom calls up and is like, I lost my job because of some sort of recession, I'm going to be like, well, I'm already, uh-oh. Besides, I ruined myself too fast. That's not
Yeah.
helpful.
I think we've talked before in this show about the concept of like a flywheel of, getting some momentum going. Like the business that we have built now has a certain amount of momentum and certain amount of systems built up to where we can generate a lot more value in a short amount of time than we could 5 years ago. So, if I would have taken like every bit of cash that I had saved up 5 years ago and just like donated all of it and then been at zero, uh, it probably would have stunted my ability to get to this point where there's that additional ability to generate value. So you have to find a balance between maintaining the flywheel and allowing yourself to keep going and to keep growing, but
Yeah.
also um, being able to give as
Like
well,
cutting out
being
all
able to
self
support.
investment may
Hmm.
not be good long term. We don't know how long anything is going to last ever. So
Yeah. And
being
I would
somewhat
look for
future minded
ways to
is good.
support people. I think we're going to talk about charity and charitable giving soon here, but I would look for ways to support people in ways that allow them to keep working and allow them to keep generating value and building systems for themselves as well.
Yeah.
Um, and, it may not be the case that every single business has the ability to adapt quickly enough in this crisis, but I think a lot of them do have avenues that they can go down. So we need to be providing the support in terms of the financial support there, but also in terms of like the idea and communicating demand and things like that.
Yeah.
So what about global community? I mean, I think there's a lot we can do for the local community, but the fact that we're all connected via the internet means there's also a lot that we can do to help everyone.
Hmm. Well, the main thing I contribute is that I'm not tweeting things that will make people feel even worse about the situation right now. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
best thing I'm offering online right now, other than
Yeah.
literally this podcast in this very moment, which I suppose is something. Um, I've also been, I've already been donating to charities. I looked into a couple more. I wouldn't call it global necessarily, but I'm donating to the Colorado Food Bank now,
Mm.
just because, like, and obviously I could extend that to any number of bigger charities that do similar things.
Yeah. We are, I think by the time this goes live, we'll have already done it. But I think I mentioned it on the last episode. We're going to do a charity stream on Twitch, myself and a bunch of other standard creators, and that'll be benefiting the Red Cross.
Cool, that's a good one.
Um, right when this crisis kicked off, there was an opportunity to do a sponsored tweet for Curiosity Stream. And I had never done a sponsored tweet before, but they were like, "Well, we'll pay you, but also we're gonna donate $1,000 to UNICEF." So I was like, "Well, yeah, let's do that, absolutely." So that was kind of an interesting way to
Hmm,
to create value in a
that's
way
cool.
that it took like 5 minutes of work. And on the plus side, it also let me promote Nebula, which is great. Like I
Yeah.
would promote Nebula organically anyway. So if I'm gonna get sponsored to promote Nebula, I will always take that. But there are a lot of great organizations out there that are doing a lot of good work. I know the Gates Foundation has a specific COVID-19 charity where they're putting funds towards not only accelerating vaccination research, but also accelerating research into I don't know what they call them, like not like a vaccine or a cure, but just like treatments to help with the symptoms and to
Yeah.
hopefully lower the severity of them. So those are useful to have, and then it's also useful to donate to things like the food bank. And I think it's good to sort of widen the view here because while there are organizations that certainly need funding for specific and direct medical costs and needs, supplies, ventilators, masks, all that kind of stuff, the entire economy has been affected by this. So to your point, like the food bank could use donations
Yeah.
because
I mean,
there's probably people in
I
rough
saw a
situations.
video of like lunch ladies prepping lunches for kids that they normally rely on free lunch. And yeah, I got
Mm-hmm.
got a little emotional. I grew up on WIC, so I'm just like, there are some kids that can't go to school and eat their food right now, and I don't want anyone to feel like that. So then I thought the food bank. It was a moment of inspiration. It's people are losing their jobs. They're doing all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah, it's
obviously going hungry right now doesn't help anyone in the community keep the community healthier.
it's something that people don't think about very often, but for a lot of kids, like going to school and getting that hot lunch in the middle of the day is sometimes the majority of what they eat.
Yeah, it's
So,
a huge deal, and then suddenly they can't go to school, so you've got people out here still volunteering to make the food for them. And then I was just like, like the homeless population, anybody who needs food that doesn't get it is not only like, obviously that's a bad situation I'd like to fix, but it becomes an increased community risk as well. If you've got a bunch of people out here that can't take care of themselves, they're more likely to get sick. They're more likely to get desperate and do things that go against guidelines.
mhm.
We're more likely to suffer as a whole.
Yeah. A couple other things that I can think of here, and I guess I'll say this before I move on. In the YouTube version of this podcast, there's a comment section that's often pretty active. So if you have suggestions for organizations that people could donate to, or other resources where we could learn how to help local communities and also greater communities at large, um, feel free to start discussions down there in the YouTube comments. I mean, also Twitter is a place that we can go to. There's all kinds of places that we can connect, but that's kind of, I would say, the main discussion hub for this podcast.
Yeah,
So
probably.
even if you're an audio listener, the College Info Geek podcast on YouTube is where a lot of the comments happen. It's kind of interesting because like the audio feed is the biggest feed by far. It
Yeah.
gets probably 10 to 15 times the amount of downloads as the YouTube videos. But the YouTube videos are where all the interaction happens. You will get the occasional email, but it's like because a podcast goes to your phone on some app, there's really no built-in community
Well,
aspect
and
to
you're
it.
like probably driving while you listen to it
Mm-hmm.
or something. You're not gonna pull over to the side of the road and write a new comment, and you better not do it while you're driving, so you just won't leave a comment.
Yeah. Please don't comment on our podcast while driving.
5
I've seen
stars.
podcasts
About to
do like
crash.
subreddits. I don't think we've been that serious about using our subreddit as a discussion for the podcast, but it exists on YouTube, so that'd be a place to go.
Yeah.
Big thing for me is just practicing empathy right now. People are going through tough times, and that often leads to emotional outbursts. It leads to, people will have times where they don't have it all together. They're going to be sad. They're going to get angry sometimes. And it can be really easy to kind of like feel like they're, I don't know, immature or something. But a lot of times people are just dealing with hardships they haven't had to deal with before. And if we can approach our response with empathy, then we're all going to be better off.
Yeah, and then you've got enough people that are like, maybe they got some of their self-image wrapped up in pride and self-sufficiency, so they hate needing help. They hate asking for help. So they might lash out when offered help. They may not be used to it. And that's like, maybe it would just take a couple more nudges to get them to just kind of accept it. I mean, I don't like accepting help most of the time either. I have that
Mm-hmm.
trait. And then also, if you're that kind of person, maybe take note of whether that's helpful right now, because our pride right now should be in whether our communities get through it, more so than I was so tough that I was doing fine. It's not. Obviously, some
Yeah.
people are going to emerge fine. That's not that interesting right now. We should be more
Mm-hmm.
willing to open up and accept or offer help.
Yeah, and if somebody has that issue, if they do feel a certain amount of pride in their ability to provide for themselves, which I totally understand and very much empathize with,
Yeah.
would feel the same way myself. It would be good to just like talk to them about the fact that again, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So everyone at some point needs help. We are all in debt to each other. We all need each other to survive. If you did not have other people, as much as we love to say, like, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, which is an ironic statement in the first place.
Yeah.
As much as we love to say that, as much as we love to say, I'm walking on air because I'm pulling up on these bootstraps, which makes zero sense. nobody is an island. Nobody could do what they do without the contributions of thousands and thousands and probably millions of unseen people. The reason you're able to do what you do is because we have all these beautiful networks of infrastructure. We have roads, we have supply lines that keep you fed, we have heating and cooling and shelter and all these things that people contribute to. And like my ability to make a cool video that people are impressed by is entirely dependent on like the zillions of people who keep the electrical grid running and the people who keep like the heating running and the internet running and like all that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it without those people.
Oh, I'd be real
And
mad
they,
without heating and cooling right now, stuck in the house.
yeah. So like imagine some guy who's like they work at the power plant, and for whatever reason their position was deemed non-essential enough to where they had to be sent home because of this crisis. What's the difference between me and him? Well, he's in a job that got affected by this, out of his control, out of all of our control. I'm in a job that didn't get affected by that. So does that mean that I'm somehow a better provider than that person? No, it means like the die was cast by fate and the universal forces with which we have no control. And, some people were affected by it in a negative way and some people not so much.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be pride there. There should be just empathy, right? Like we are all in this together. And the people who aren't as affected by it right now should be trying to help the people who are. And then on the flip side, the people who are affected by it should realize like it's not your fault. There are things you can do, of course, to mitigate and to innovate and to work through it, but it's not your fault. This is like something that's completely out of all of our control.
All you can really do is know that next time when the dice are cast and you are the one on top, do the same thing for whoever wasn't. Just pay it back later. And I mean, this is like I try to do this always because I try to think on this level. But I tip well at every restaurant. I tip at every cafe I go to, even when I don't need to, and I know that I could just get away with not tipping because they just added it to the receipt. I just be like, yeah, but these people are keeping me going, and if I make enough, then they're part of the reason I'm creating value, which means I think that they deserve some of that value. I think that they should be able to live well, because without them, I wouldn't at all, regardless of how fancy or skilled anything I do might look. It doesn't matter without the other people helping me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So just try to keep that empathetic point of view here and use it actively in your interactions with people. The last thing I want to talk about here, and I don't know how far I can even go into it, but my observation of this crisis is that certain people are taking advantage of it to spread misinformation.
Yay.
There certainly are agendas behind the spread of misinformation, and this is happening on all sides, all different sides of the political spectrum, the ideological spectrum. So this is not an attempt to single out any particular group, but as Rahm Emanuel said, and I'm sure other people have said, like, never waste a good crisis. And there are certainly people with agendas who are not wasting their crisis moment here. So this is a tough one to get into because it's like, how do you provide specific steps that other people are not going to vehemently disagree with? But be careful with the information that's being put out there. Be careful with the information that you are deciding to amplify and retweet and share. Use good judgment with how you evaluate your sources.
Yeah, and then
are they backed up?
Never stop.
Never stop. Exactly. Constant vigilance. But evaluate the sources of information. If you see a claim being made, ask yourself, well, what is the source of this claim? What is is this a verifiable source? What is the sample size of a study? Say if it's a study, who funded the study?
Yeah.
What is the person who is initially spreading this message? What do they stand to gain from spreading this message?
Yeah. Or anyone connected to them.
Yeah, or is somebody connected to them standing to gain from this? Are they bankrolled or are they supported by another organization that would stand to gain from this? Again, this is tough water to navigate. It's very hard to be like, don't amplify these sources, amplify these sources, because
Yeah, we can't
everyone's
give
got to
literal
take,
steps to
right?
know what the facts are. It's different in every
Everyone's got to
situation.
take. Yeah, we're in a pretty neutral niche here. Like productivity is a pretty neutral niche. Like, big Evernote is over here telling people to take bullet list notes, and I could have just took them with dashes and Emacs. Thomas
Yeah,
Frank's a fake.
it's not that controversial to be
The moment you start
productive,
spreading
it turns out.
messages about health, about money, about who is in power and leadership, about any of those kind of things get very, very contentious very, very quickly. All sorts of people will come out of the woodwork to tell you how you're wrong and a bad person. So all I can say here is be vigilant, evaluate your sources, ask yourself the critical questions. Who stands to benefit from this message? Does that matter? How much does it matter? Things like that. The main thing is when you see an inflammatory message, when you see something that evokes an emotional reaction from you, ask yourself, should I act upon that emotional reaction? Or should I step back, think about it, wait to react publicly, decide if I even should? And if I should, how should I do it? Because I
Yeah,
would say in
like
most cases, your initial fired up emotional reaction is probably not the best one to be putting out into the world. Not
and
always the
that's the
case.
one someone would
Yeah.
want to bait anyway. If they were putting something out there to try to get attention, what they want to appeal to is your emotions because it'll bypass your logic and you will make
Yeah.
more judgment in assuming whether they're credible. And obviously some of the stuff is true. There is a truth out there. Just be cautious before you decide which it is, or you might get duped by your emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the main thing. Just don't get duped by your own emotions. So I think that'll probably do it for now, unless you had anything else
I
you
mean,
wanted to talk
everything
about.
else that I would say to help a community, we can't do right now. Stay at home as much as possible and take this seriously. That's helping the community.
It's true. Stay at home, wash your hands.
Everything else that I could say, maybe that could be another episode someday in the future. It would be something that it's you go out there and do stuff. That was my original plan, and then we got stay at home orders, and I was like, well, now this episode needs to change because we can't do these things right now. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, no, I can't go out and do stuff. Dang it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what you can do is go over to cigpodcast.com/293 to get the show notes for this episode. The main thing we're going to link to is probably the YouTube version, just in case people put stuff in the comments. But I know there's a couple of different organizations we had mentioned. There are many more out there, so don't take ours as like a ranking of everything.
Charity Navigator's pretty dope place to look if you're looking.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Charity Navigator. I think there's another one that's like effective altruism. I think they kind of rank charities.
Yeah, like there are places that make sure it's real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's even like charity is another one of those things where people love to get very, very contentious. Like, oh, did you know that even this ranking website has a bunch of biases? I don't even know.
I'm sure every human alive does. You got to just kind of pick which gambles you're going to take and then take them.
Mm-hmm. I am confident that the organizations I donate to are doing good in the world. Are they doing the most good? Well, that is a discussion that quickly turns into like Greek philosophy in many cases. So
yeah,
I don't know. What is utilitarianism?
At that point, it kind of ruins
is a speck
everything.
in the eye of a billion people worth the torture of a man for a million years? I don't know.
No matter what one person does that's good, you could always just say, yeah, but they could have done better. It's just never helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anyway, cigpodcast.com, no trailing numbers. If you want to get the regular hub page for this podcast, where you'll find ways to subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, Smoke Signals, the ethereal philotic chords of the universe, which always are tugging at your heartstrings, especially when you're connected to our show. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't know, but I think it must be
true. Going somewhere. It's going somewhere poetic. On Apple Podcasts, there is a rating and review system, so you can leave us a 5-star rating and review if you enjoyed this show. Otherwise, I mean, criticism is always welcomed. But yeah, I'll just leave that at that. Collegeinfogeek.com is where you can find lots of cool new articles. Otherwise, you are Yo Bartholomew on Instagram, and I'm Tom Frankly. You can connect with us there, or at least look at pretty pictures. And those exact same usernames apply to Twitter as well, or at least I'm a little more interactive on Twitter. I'm not sure how much tweeting you do. Maybe some more Animal Crossing related tweets lately.
I really only tweet to I respond to things. I don't really tweet my own things because I don't think my thoughts are that important for Twitter, which is ironic because I'm on a podcast right now.
My thoughts aren't important enough for Twitter.
I fell into this job on accident. Like, what are you going to do?
It's true. It was me being like, "Hey, Martin, I want to do a podcast where I play a video game in the background because it'll be fun. Do you want to play it with me?" And that's how that started.
This just happened. There's not a lot of cognitive dissonance there. I can't accidentally go tweet a bunch of opinions that I think are smart. That's not. I'd have to.
You being on this podcast was like the proverbial frog in boiling water. Like, I think if I would have asked you 5 years ago, "Hey, Martin, do you want to be like in a YouTube video with me that 200,000 people are going to watch?"
You'd be like, "You want to do productivity stuff online?" And I'd probably be like, "I don't." But here I am.
But do you want to steal that dope ass crown?
Always, every time.
In that case, I don't even remember which episode this is. It's like
that's a 20s. very, very old,
very old episode. Those were the days. All right, it's gonna do it for this episode, I think. So thank you for hanging out with us as always, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.